I think that was everything that I wanted to say. So, Robin, the floor is yours.
All right. Hi, everyone. For anyone who's a first timer, this is also my first time hosting a webinar, so we're all in this together. And I think I'll just go ahead and bring up my screen. All right, we'll get to see all of our faces again, but via my screen share in a second. All right, so the first thing, I'm going to kind of break this down into 3 parts today. We're going to start with the quizzing UI, which is all new and improved. You'll know if you've been into courseware in the last week or so. And then into what we've done for anatomy updates, and then some final things, which includes, you can see these partial credit assignments on my in my assignment page here. So currently I'm logged into courseware as a student because I wanted to give you the proper student perspective on what all of these quizzes will look like. So we're going to start with a dissection quiz. So the first thing you'll notice is that everything is hopefully loading faster than you're used to. We've made a lot of back-end improvements to make that faster for you and your students. This quiz has a lot of anatomy, so it might actually take a minute or two, and they tend to take longer when you're on Zoom. So just give it a second. Right, and you can already see that this looks different than the old quiz app. It uses more of the same UI that courseware itself uses, and the same color schemes and everything that way. I'll just give it a second. This quiz has multiple models in it, and we make sure to load all the models up front so that there's no wait time during the quiz. All right, so you can see a couple differences on this page. We show your attempts, the remaining number of attempts for the quiz, right on this start screen, and then I can get straight in and start taking my quiz. So one of the biggest pieces of customer feedback that we've gotten on the quizzing is that the models are very hard to navigate. And that's something we've worked a lot to improve. So you can see that hopefully this looks nice over Zoom as well as it does on my computer. That I can turn this model really well. It's not overly sensitive. I can zoom in and out easily. This is all just using the trackpad on my laptop. And in addition, I can still use keyboard commands. So some of those that we have are, you can use the W, A, S, and D keys to move your model around. So that matches the controls that you see in all of the other web apps like Atlas. And that should match and make it very easy to do fine control if you're having problems using your mouse. And then a third way to move the model is actually to use this joystick. So you might recognize this from Atlas on the web. And we've also added it to the quizzing. So I can use these arrow keys also to move the model back and forth, so to pan and to move it up and down. This central knob type thing is used for rotation. So you can see I can rotate the model. And then this bar is for zoom. So I can use the bar itself to zoom in and out. And I can also use these for finer control. The plus and minus are actually clickable buttons. And you'll notice with the zoom, one of the best things, in my opinion, that we added was that as you zoom in closer, you're actually zooming in less and less. So if I'm zoomed this close, it's only making a tiny adjustment, versus if I'm zoomed out, you can see it's moving much more. And then in addition to all of those controls, we still have all the typical selection controls that you're used to. So I can select a bone. This is obviously not a long bone. I can fade it, I can hide it, I can fade and hide others. And if I accidentally hide the bone that I want to select, I can also just refresh the view, bring it back to what it came in as, and restart. So that's how that looks on the full body anatomy, but also we made sure that these controls are nicely adjusted so that they work well on the micro anatomy models. So this one works similarly. I can zoom, I can pan, and I can rotate the same way, and also doing the same thing using the joystick. Oh, and a fun thing about the joystick, you can, if you really hate the joystick, you can also minimize it and get it out of your way. if you need more room on your screen. All right, so I'm just going to go through and also go through and answer a few more questions and move the models around so that you can really see how nicely everything moves and how much control hopefully you and your students will have now with these quizzes. I'll try to pick the correct answers to the best of my ability. And you'll notice that some of these views and some of these models actually don't have the hide and fade buttons available. And that's usually just because the model doesn't need them in order for you to get to any of the correct answers. So like this skin view, you don't need to hide or fade anything in order to select any of the answers you need. They're all selectable from the sides. And we'll see how well I do at the end. Oh, only a 57. Okay, so on this page, you'll see you get some information about how your quiz went. So my score was a 57, sad for me. And then the number of attempts that I have left. So because my instructor gave me many attempts on this, I can actually see that I have 9 left. I can review my quiz score right here and see which answers I got correct. So I got the first 3, but I missed a few in the middle. Evidently, I've got to work on knowing my special senses a little better. So I can close out of that. And then I can actually, one of the new things we added is this retake quiz button. And students can now retake their quiz if they have attempts remaining directly from the quiz itself. You don't have to close it, go back to Courseware and launch it all over again. You just get to start over. Now you can see I'm on attempt 2 out of 10 and I can take the quiz again. I won't make you watch me answer all of those questions another time. So instead, that shows all of the dissection views and how those have been updated. We'll also take a look at multiple choice. And so because there's no anatomy here, hopefully this will load faster. Right, so you can see no secondary load time on this page. And again, you can see the number of attempts, the name of the quiz up here, and I can just go ahead and start taking it. And so you can see on here that this looks a lot more like the quizzes that you see in P&P rather than the older quizzes. Like we've added these boxes around the answers to make sure that you can really tell what you are clicking on when you're clicking on it. And also they now should scroll nicely and adjust when you adjust the size of your window. So you can see everything is nice and scrollable. So even if you're doing this on a very small screen, you should be able to handle it. All right, which of the following facial bones is the only movable one? I know this one. I'm just gonna, half of these are gonna be guesses. Okay, I think this is another thing that we've done is we've updated the size of these images. So depending on the size of the image you're putting into your question, but you should see that they are mostly bigger than they used to be. I think we did about a 30% increase in how tall your image can be. So if you have a very tall, skinny image, you might still have a little tiny, tall, skinny image. But if you're using anything that has like fairly normal proportions, you should see, your students should be able to see it better when you use an image in your questions. All right, we'll get through this. I know most of these. Mostly because I memorized them practicing for this webinar. All right, an 85, I feel much better about that one. Okay, so again, I can review my quiz, my results here, and you'll see for the multiple choice that in addition to showing the answer that I selected, that if I get it wrong, you can also see the correct answer here. And that's a setting that you can change in Courseware just like you used to, where it won't show the correct answers. if you turn it off. And your students will only be able to see those at a different point, depending on how you do that setting. Nothing's changed on that front, right? So I can see that I answered most of these correctly. I can dismiss this. I can also click outside of this box to get rid of it. And then if I wanted to, I could retake it again. And so that's the major UI updates that we've done, and user experience updates, and updating the models. Does anyone have any questions that haven't been answered in the chat so far?
Looks like we have one from Elizabeth. If a student takes a quiz again, is the question order changed, or will they get different questions?
So that still depends on the settings that you have on your quiz. So if you have a random question order, it should be newly randomized each time. And if you're using a pool, again, you should get a new pool of questions each time, even though you're just launching it again in the same tab. Good question.
Okay, awesome. And from Angie, are these pre-made quizzes, or does the instructor create them?
So we do have a lot of pre-made quizzes. Here, let me go into my instructor view. So the quiz bank is where you can find a multitude of, you can see all of our crazy testing quizzes that we make, because you're seeing my account right now. But these visible body authored quizzes are all pre-made for you, as well as the Atlas practice quizzes are all in here. So those are pre-made, and you can go in and clone them and edit them to your heart's content. Add new questions, take questions out. You can make your own questions. You can mix and match questions from various different quizzes you have or that we've made. So there is a lot of pre-made content, and you can also make any new content of your own.
Okay, we have a question from Joan. Can students take quizzes on phones?
Right now, we don't support them taking quizzes on phones. It has to be on their computer, so a laptop or a desktop.
Okay, and from Randy, if you have multiple quizzes inside of a graded quiz, do each still have, do they still have the assigned point value?
So the way that works is, if you have multiple quizzes, individual quizzes inside one assignment, they each have the number of points that are assigned to the assignment. So if you set 10 points per quiz in the assignment, each quiz in the assignment will be worth 10 points. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. All right, yes, Randy says yes. From Corbin, something that I would like to see that I don't think is a feature is for images to be movable objects so that students can view the objects in 3D.
I mean, the ideal way to do that is to use the dissection quizzes. So that first quiz type that I showed you, where you do have the full model. And unfortunately, we don't support that in along with multiple choice questions right now. It just has to be oh, pick this, pick that, or ask a more complex question, maybe like select one of the arteries that brings blood between the heart and the lungs, or something along those lines. But yeah, we don't currently have the movable model embeddable into the multiple choice framework.
One thing that you can do, I know multiple choice questions are sometimes deliberately in a sequence. So you can arrange dissection questions also in a purposeful sequence. So in the same way that you can select the random order, you can also arrange them saying like, here's a question that I'm dividing into 3, and you can accomplish that in the dissection question, so that students do have dissection quizzing, so that students do have that interactivity with, hiding and fading structures to find the right one. I hope that made sense.
Yes, and I think And I think Robin actually answered another question from Louise about different types of questions on a single quiz.
Oh yeah, not yet. Hopefully someday.
Okay, and we did have a hand, somebody used the hand raise function in the Zoom, and whoever did has disappeared from my view. Oh, Sarah. Sarah, if you wouldn't mind just popping your question into the chat. Two parts kind of long. All right. If it's kind of long, I'll unmute you just so we don't eat up a lot of time. Okay. That should, Sarah, can
Yes. Hi, can you
there
hear
we
me?
go. There you are.
Okay, sorry, it was just a couple quick ones, but it was kind of long too. So when you choose multiple choice, you can put that you never don't show the correct answer, but then can you go back in and then show it after the quiz so the students can then see what answers they got wrong after the fact, or like?
Yeah, let me here. I can quickly just show you what that page looks like. Okay, so create a new assignment and then create a graded quiz. Right, so if I just click around, let's make sure I'm actually clicking a multiple choice question because that's important. So I will click this one. Right, so the settings that I was talking about are down at the bottom. It's this quiz feedback section. And so this is the feedback after quiz is the important one for showing the multiple choice answers and the correct answers or not. And so you can have them show after every quiz attempt. You can have them show only on the last quiz attempt, or you can have it never show answers. And so once you've published your quiz, people can take it, and then you can always come back in here and modify the settings to your quiz once it is published as well.
So they can, once everyone's taken it, they can go back in and maybe see where they went wrong.
Yeah, they should be able to.
Now, what I don't like about this that I've talked to other people at Visible Body is I don't like the fact that there is no option to never show any information. Like I don't want necessarily my students to know their grade right at the end or to know which ones they got right or wrong, because I have multiple lab sections over multiple days. So what's to prevent students from screenshotting their answers and stuff like that? So I would like to put it out there that it would be really great if that you could, as an instructor, shut it all down until it's ready for the students, till you want them to see that information.
It is definitely on the list. We just haven't gotten to it yet.
Okay, that's it. Thanks.
All right, so I think that we should probably move on to part 2 here.
So
one
we
more.
have a from Mark. Are your quizzes compatible with lockdown browsers or Respondus or similar technology?
Right now, we don't have a specific integration or anything with any of the lockdown browsers, including Respondus. There might be very background ways to set it up yourself if you're willing to do a lot of extra work. We haven't tested any of this ourselves, so I can't guarantee that. But there's no like straightforward, easy way right now. It's also on the list to get to someday.
We do have a blog post, however, that has different ways of kind of ensuring academic integrity. And I can include a link to that blog post in the email that I send out tomorrow, if that might help.
Yeah, I definitely recommend adding time limits to your quizzes. That at least helps make sure that people are keeping a more narrow focus and they can't spend lots of time looking up answers outside of the quiz.
And the pool feature as well. So you can put 50 questions in a quiz and give each student a random 25 or 20 or less if you make your pool bigger.
Right, they'll have less overlap. They won't be able to give each other all the answers.
All right. Candace says Proctorio has a way of doing third-party recording of an exam. I'm not.
I do have some instructors that I work with that have successfully used courseware with some of these third-party products. We just haven't done official testing yet. So we would just recommend to you that you try it out yourselves and test it, since we haven't, gathered any official data yet.
Definitely.
Yeah. All right. These were all great questions. And unless anybody has a few last minute ones, I think, Robin, you can push on.
All right. So the next thing I'd like to show you all is we have newly updated anatomy that we have put into Make Quizable. So it's already been in Human Anatomy Atlas, but it wasn't available in the quiz app until, last week when we did this big update. So I'm going to launch another quiz, which will take a minute or so. But I just wanted to show you all of the places where we have the new anatomy and tell you how we've updated our quiz questions and other quiz questions in the quiz bank to go along with these updates, because we want to make sure that students can get all of the right answers. And when we update anatomy, usually that means we are adding more correct answers as possibilities to the quizzes. So I'll get into that. Once everything eventually loads. It's the curse of the Zoom demo, is everything takes longer than it does in real life. All right, here we go.
It also takes longer when you're watching.
Of course.
Staring at it.
All right, so the first major place where we have made updates in the quizzing anatomy is the kidney, which, why did that just disappear on me? Again, the curse of the Zoom demo. All right, here we go. So this kidney is now much more segmented than it used to be for quizzing. It used to, I believe, just be like maybe the front and back of the kidney, and now you have all of these individual components, which are all selectable and can all be used as answers when you're making quiz questions. So I'll pick a random piece. We also added additional detail to the female genitalia. I think specifically the clitoris was split into multiple pieces where it used to just be one. So you can see this is all has many more selectable pieces than it used to. And those are also all available to make new questions in the quiz bank with. And I'll try to get this right. Click on an actual part of the uterus like my prompt tells me to. All right, and then we've also made a lot of improvements to the vasculature. That's something that we're always adding new branches to and expanding. Specifically, we've added new branches to the vasculature around the hip and pelvis, as well as around the knee. So many more branches in here. And I'm not going to bother trying to specifically pick the superior vena cava. And then also the head and neck vasculature is improved. So you'll see more branches up around the head and neck as well. And also the around the head and neck, we have the cranial nerves have received improvements and more branching and more structures and more detail. So you can see many new nerves and nerve branches around the head and the neck. And then also new to the quiz app is the ligaments and tendons of the hand and wrist. These have all been improved in the apps in the last year or so and are now finally appearing for quizzing. So these are all now quizzable structures. where they were not before. And we also have newly segmented lungs. The pleura is also now available, although it's not in this view that I chose. But you can see that there are not just individual lobes of the lungs that can be selected, but also segments of each lobe individually. So I've got, 3 or 4 segments of this lower lobe of the lung. And a few very specific adjustments that we've made to some muscles. So this first one is we've added the innermost intercostals. So if I go through and I hide a few layers of muscles here, all these intercostal muscles, then you can see the innermost intercostal muscles in the middle here, connecting to the sternum. And last but not least, we have also added the 3 heads of the pec major. So this used to be one large muscle, and now we've correctly split it up into the 3 heads so that each head is individually selectable. And this one is a good example for me to talk about for how we've actually adjusted the questions to go along with all of the anatomy that's available for quizzing. So you can see that this prompt has been updated where it may have previously said, select either the right or left pectoralis major. It now has been changed to say select any head of the right or left pectoralis major. So we've made that kind of update to the actual prompt text of the prompt in our visible body authored questions. We haven't made any prompt updates to your authored questions, so any of your custom content. But in addition to updating prompts, we've also actually updated the answers. So where previously there would have just been 2 possible answers for this question, just the right pec and the left pec, now you have the 6 possible answers because each of these heads could be a correct answer to this question. And we've made similar adjustments to the correct answers for other questions, like where we added multiple branches of a nerve. All of those branches could now be correct answers, where before there was only one possibility. So I'll move on from this one. And here, I'll actually take you into the quiz bank so that we can see how one of those questions looks. If I can get to my bar and actually bring up my instructor account. There we go. Right, so if I go into the quiz bank and I look for pectoralis. Oh, I'm in the quiz bank. I need to be in the question bank. That was silly of me. Right, so I can go in here and I can clone this question so that I can see what the answers are. So if I look in here, where before it would have just been 2, I can now see all 6 have been adjusted. And we've done this part where we've taken one structure that has been divided into smaller pieces, and we've made those changes both to our questions and to the user created questions. So if you had a question that quizzed on the PEC major, we've done a similar thing there. And if you're concerned about any of those, you can go and make sure to check out your questions and make sure that all of the correct answers that you want are there. All right, does anyone have any questions on the updated anatomy?
Yes, we have a couple of them. From Angie, is the entire anatomy figure able to be used in quizzes?
As far as I'm aware, you can test on any part of the anatomy in the main body. There are specific views basically that we have set up to work as dissection views. So you have to make sure that you're finding one that has the anatomy that you want, basically. So you can, when you go to create a question, you can choose a view, and none of these views we haven't added any more in here yet. That would be that'll be a separate quizzing update in the future. But you can go through and see roughly what is in the view here. And these cover all the major parts, major regions and systems of the body, as well as some microanatomy. So if I scroll way down, There'll be some microanatomy at the bottom. Maybe it's not at the bottom.
One thing that's great too about what Robin's doing right now is the filters first, and then also the search. We have a lot of search bars. So if you're looking for like the hepatic duct, for example, and don't want to scroll and sort through folders and things like that, you can type that into the search bar and it will show you all of the possible views that include the liver. And then you can choose from those.
And you can also see a little better what these will look like by mousing over the thumbnails.
All right, and we have from Randy, if you have VB questions already in quizzes, will they update automatically, or do you need to reload them?
They should all be updated automatically. It was a database-wide change.
And great, from Candace, we have, were there any additions to the skeletal and muscular system anatomy beyond what has been shown?
Not as far as I know. The ligaments and those 2 muscle updates is what we've done so far.
In terms of quizzing.
Right, in terms of quizzing. Right, there are additional ligament updates in Human Anatomy Atlas, so you can have your students go look at them there, but they're not quizzable yet.
It looks like that might be it.
All right.
If anybody has any additional questions about the new anatomy updates to the quizzing, now's the time. I will take your silences. No, Courtney, we are all set. So, Robin.
All right.
It's all you.
Okay, let me scroll down in my document that's telling me what to say that I wrote. Okay, here we go. So the last kind of chunk of things, this is like all of the other random little things that we've done over the course of this release. So the first thing that I'll show you, I do want to be in the Professor Gradebook. So I'm going to go in here. And you can see I made some of my colleagues sign up to be in this course so that I'd have a gradebook with actual people in it. And you can see that we've added numbering to the gradebook, which was a request from many customers. Many of you who have lots of students in your class and you have to make sure that everyone is actually in your coursework course didn't want to count individually every student for some reason. So we've added some lovely numbering for you. And that's also showing up in the roster. So you can see I have 5 people and they're all numbered on the side. And then another little random thing that we've done is if I go to my courses page, we've added something to the copying page. So when I go to make a copy of my course, I can now modify the time zone right in here as I'm copying it. This was another frequent customer request, especially when you're copying from the pre-made courses page, since we at Visible Body are mostly in Eastern time, and you are not all working in Eastern time. There were some issues with the due times of assignments not lining up correctly. So now when you copy a course from that pre-made page, you'll be able to change it to whatever time zone you need it in for your course. And then, let's see, and then one more slightly bigger thing that will involve more of you having to watch me take quizzes, my apologies, is a new partial credit feature that we've added. So I'll show you how to make one first. That's probably the best way to do this. So if I go into the quiz bank or go to make a quiz assignment from the quiz bank, I can grab a couple of random quizzes here. And then you'll see all of the same settings you've seen before. And there's just one new one in this quiz style section, which is partial credit for incomplete quiz. So there's an info button here that'll tell you exactly what you need to know. But the general information is that if your partial credit is set to yes, your timed quizzes and your students, if they go past the time set for a time quiz or past the due date set for a quiz, they will be they kind of get stopped once the time runs out or once their due date passes, but they get credit for everything they've gotten to so far, basically. And if you set it to no, there are some very strict professors out there, apparently, where they want you to get no credit if you don't finish everything. So those are the two options we have right now. You get credit for everything that you get to on time, or you don't get credit for anything if you run out of time. And everything was set to yes by default, so anything that you made before this update went out will automatically have partial credit set to yes. So students will get credit for everything that they get to. And I'll show you also what the student sees. So now I'll swap to my student view. All right. So here's an example where I turned the partial credit off for this quiz. So it's set to no. You can just see that I named it that way. You'll have to trust me that that's what the setting says. All right, and you can see that this quiz has a time limit. So it's set to 1 minute, and that shows up in that upper right corner. And I'll start my quiz, and we'll have to wait a minute for this to go. But in the meantime, I can actually go and show you in the gradebook that if I find that quiz, it says that it's in progress. You can see that the attempt has been started, it's in progress, your student started the quiz. And now I'll try to answer a couple questions right. You can see I turned feedback on for this quiz, so you can see the students can see what they're getting as they're going through. And then just going to click something obviously wrong for this one. Oh, I got it wrong. It's okay. All right, and I'm going to let my time run out now. So you'll see in a couple seconds that my time is up. Oh no. So I was unable to finish the quiz because I ran out of time. You get a similar message if you pass your due date. You're unable to finish this quiz because your due date has passed. It tells me how many questions I got to, how many attempts I have left, and then I can review my quiz. And you can see that even though I got some questions correct because the partial credit is set to no, I unfortunately sadly get a 0 for this quiz. And you can see also that in the later questions, it shows that I did not select an answer for this. So as an instructor, you can see this in the gradebook as well. Where I go over here. I go in here and I can see the detailed quiz for myself as a student. And you'll be able to see, oh, okay, they got a 0 because they didn't get to these 3 questions and I set it to not have partial credit. And in addition, it also shows that this happened because your time expired. So that's a new status that we added to the gradebook so that you can tell why someone might have a lower grade than you'd expect them to have. And then I will show you what happens. And they can, of course, still retake, they still have their remaining attempts left, and every other quiz setting still applies. So I could retake it if I wanted to and improve my score, hopefully. All right. And if I refresh my gradebook as a student, I can see the same thing here. And now I go back to my assignments, and this assignment was set to give me partial credit. And the reason that we did this actually is because previously our timed quizzes and our untimed quizzes worked differently from each other, where if it was a timed quiz, you could get credit for questions that you got to before time ran out or your due date passed. But untimed quizzes, if your due date passed while you were in there, you were out of luck and no one ever got any credit. So we've kind of now given you the option that you can apply to both quiz types instead of it being forced one way or the other, depending on which you chose. So I'll start this one. And my timer starts, and I'll answer a few questions. The lipid tails are not dissolved by water. Oh, good, I got that right. using my biology degree for good. Right, and so again, if I go to my gradebook, you'll be able to see that I've started this quiz. It is in progress. I can see that in my gradebook, and my professor can see it in their gradebook. And my timer keeps ticking down while I'm away, though, which is definitely something to be aware of. It does not pause when you leave the page. Oh, now I'm just picking random things. And again, I've run out of time, but this time I get a score of 20% because if we go in and review, I got 2 questions right, and then I got a couple questions wrong, or 1 question wrong, and then I didn't answer. So again, you can see that I selected no answers, and it does tell me the correct answer in here. So if I was really determined, I suppose as a student, I could take a screenshot of this, because I haven't, as a professor, I didn't make that setting where it doesn't show the correct answer. And I can go into my gradebook and refresh and see that again, my time expired, and that's why I have a 20, and that's why my grade is lower than maybe I'd expect it to be. But because partial credit is on and set to yes, then they do get credit for what they did get to. All right, and that's kind of, that's all there is to say about partial credit right now. And that is the end of, I think, the important features of this update. So does anyone else have any other questions about anything from today, or just other quizzing questions?
We do have some questions from Anne. Do you still have to scroll to the bottom of the gradebook to scooch left or right?
Okay, I don't remember if that went out in the bug fix update that we pushed live yesterday, or if it's going up in the one next week, but it's very close to being fixed if it's not already.
So we're almost, although we might also already be there. Okay, do student names or column titles stay fixed while you scroll around the gradebook?
This student name column does get fixed, but these titles do not right now. So I can always see that this student was there.
All right. Candace had her question about partial credit being set to yes as the default answered. And Candace, no apologies necessary. Okay, from Lisa, do they get credit for both what they finished before they ran out of time and or if the deadline due date time is passed?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
So I think it was more of a clarification that she wanted on her part. So do students get credit for both what they finished before they ran out of time and or if the deadline due date time has passed?
Okay, so they will get credit for everything that they finished before the deadline or the time passes. And basically, when the deadline passes or the time or you run out of time, you're brought to that page at that like finish page where it says time's up or your due date has passed. And so they won't be able to answer anything that comes after the time or the due date.
Okay. From Carrie, when you need to add an extension for a student, a lot lately for medical reasons, it kicks you back out to the main gradebook page. It would be great if you could stay on the student detail page when you click save.
Oh, so like when you're in here and you need to modify and extend, that's a good thing. I think that's probably a bug that we just haven't found yet. So thank you.
That's
we'll
very
write
good
that one down.
Yeah, we'll definitely submit it to the dev team. Awesome. Carrie, you are welcome. And Lisa, I am psyched that you are psyched about about partial credit.
Yay.
Yay. Awesome. And I think that was what we had for written questions. Since we are coming up against the end of this webinar, if anybody does have any further questions, let's get wild and turn off the mute thing. So if anyone has further questions, use the raise hand feature in Zoom, and I can unmute you. Ah, we have our first. Awesome. From Joan. Joan, you're on the air.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So the question about the extension, is that also if I have students who have special accommodations, can I set that so that they automatically are always a certain time length above the other students?
Yes, so if you want to do that, you can go into your roster on this left-hand side, and it's one of the columns in here is timed quiz accommodations.
Okay.
So you can give them a specific multiplier is how we've put it in. So you can give them 1.5 time or double time, or enter something else on your own, or just not have them have time limits at all.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
No problem.
Awesome. And we had a question in the chat from Lisa. Can you put both your questions, and your meaning visible bodies, and our own created questions together in one quiz?
Yes, you definitely can. So you can, if you're in the question bank, you can take any questions that are in here. So I could sort by visible body, and one of my other random professor friends from VB in here, and I could take any combination of these questions and add them to my quiz.
You can also take a pre-built quiz that we have authored, and if there's one or two things in that quiz that we don't ask that you want to add, you can add in one or two questions to a quiz that already exists.
Yep. Yeah, the best way to do that is you want to clone whatever quiz you like that exists, and then I can save it, and then edit, and then you go in, oh, dragging the wrong thing out of my way. And I can add more questions here.
Awesome. And then from Candace, this isn't related to quizzes. Is there any word on when Human Anatomy Atlas 2021 will be available?
Soon. I don't have an exact date, but we're working on it right now.
Yeah, I know that we're hoping to push that out, Don't quote me on this, but the time frame that I've heard kicked around the virtual office at this point is February. So fingers and toes and everything crossed that that it will happen very soon. And as soon as it does, I'll be sending out an email announcing that update is available.
It's going to be a great update.
Yes. Okay, from Sarah, is there anything on the books about making one course with sections within it as opposed to multiple courses for each lab section?
I know that it's on the list and that people definitely ask for it. I'm not sure how high a priority it is for us. It's more complicated than you would think. I can't tell if Joan has raised her hand again to talk, or if that's just left over from the last one. Oh, no, it went away. Okay, so does anybody else have any questions? We have 4 minutes.
Candace, I'm coming. All right. Candace, you're on.
Hi, thank you. Just a quick question. I had I talked to Mary Ness about this. Is there somewhere on the top of the list or close to it maybe about the ability to archive a course? Because I would love to be able to archive courses just to make my screen a little bit cleaner. Thank you.
That is also definitely on the list, and I think is more easily achievable. I still don't know if we'll get to it in the next couple months or anything like that, but I will raise it to the team once more.
And one thing to note too is that we gather all this feedback, so we value when instructors tell us what they need, because we, see what the most people need, and that's the first thing we start working on. So just know that when you do make these recommendations, we're taking them back and we're like, all right, we've got this many instructors that want this. Let's get started on that or this.
Yes, there's some sort of very complicated spreadsheet where we put in like everyone who's asked for the thing and how many times and how many people have asked, and we try to use that to the best of our ability to prioritize.
Yes, that spreadsheet is kind of legendary. So, all right, Mary, we had a question before yours from Sarah. Is there a way to edit students' names in the roster?
I don't think that there is. That might be a good thing to add.
The students can, I believe, edit their own name.
Right, that might be the best way. Or maybe your problem is that your students are putting in crazy names and you want to be able to fix them.
I believe they can edit their own name underneath the drop down where it says their email address.
Right, yes. If I go in here as a student or a professor, I can edit my first or last name. So you might just have to bother your students to do it for you.
Oh, they put nicknames.
Yeah, they put nicknames. I totally would have been one of those students. All right, before we get to Randy's question, Mary had raised her hand. So Mary, I am going to unmute you. You're on the air. Oh.
It doesn't look like Mary is still in the call. Oh yes, there she is.
No, she is, and I keep clicking unmute, but now it's telling me that I need to ask her.
Okay.
Oh, there you are.
Oh, okay. Sorry. This is all great, and it's wonderful. I love VisBody. I just want to make a side comment. When I've made quizzes in the past, I would really like the opportunity to be able to look at all the questions I've put into a quiz and then select a certain one to look more closely at that question. Whereas now, when I do that, I have to go through and do the trial quiz and go through every single question to get to the one I wanted to look at after I've made some modifications to it. So I just, FYI for the future, that would be great.
Got it, like improved previewing?
Yes, yes. Rather than having to look at the whole thing at the same time to get to a specific question. That would be great, but I love VisBody, so thank you.
All right, Robin, add that one to the list.
Oh yeah.
Okay, I was gonna say, Robin, you got that one because I think that one went a little bit over my head, but if you get it, Robin.
I think I understand.
Awesome.
This is, one of them says a way to add student ID to the roster. Robin, do you want to go ahead or do you want me to go ahead?
I mean, here, let me pop into a course with a roster in it again. Right, so just like an additional column alongside email and name would be student ID.
Yeah, we don't have a way to add in a column, but we are working on single sign-on with learning management systems. We did roll out a single sign-on with Canvas. So when students are signing up for Visible Body through your Canvas shell, we are able to take the data of their student ID. So that's kind of how we're doing it now. And we do have that single sign-on complete and rolled out with Canvas. Next on the list is single sign-on with Blackboard. I think loosely, we don't like to promise dates, but sometime this spring, hopefully. But we don't like to promise too many. We like to, you know, bring surprises instead, I guess. D2L is also on the list. I don't have an estimated date on that, but Blackboard will be the next one out, and then I'm not sure after that, but it's definitely on the list to create single sign-on with all of the learning management systems.
Yes.
And that, I think, relates to Randy's question with the CSV. So with Canvas, since we do have the single sign-on now and we are pulling the student ID, that CSV should run pretty seamlessly from Courseware export into Canvas, since we are able to gather the student ID data now. For the other, like when you're exporting the gradebook to the other learning management systems, when you export, that's when we recommend adding a manual column of student IDs. So if you're exporting right now the Courseware gradebook to Blackboard, we recommend that you manually insert a column of student IDs so that the CSV will run more smoothly into Blackboard. I hope that makes sense. Let's see.
We have a question about Google Classroom.
I actually don't know the answer to that one. Do you know that, Robin?
If Google Classroom is on the list for single sign-on.
I don't think it's on the list right now, but we could definitely look into adding it.
Is Moodle? I know Moodle is on the list.
Moodle is definitely on the list. Yes, Google Classroom is definitely more high school students, but we know that Visible Body is also being used more and more with high school students as well. So.
Okay, so so sorry, we are a couple of minutes over time, but if anybody has any last minute questions, we are here for those. And if you think of more once this webinar ends, feel free to reach out to your reps or you know, get in contact with support with any questions. We are absolutely here to help you. And I suppose, yep, Allie just popped our support email into the chat, support@visiblebody.com. And Margaret, we love our support team too, and I'm so happy that you think that they're awesome, because they really and truly are. And they are all ready and willing to help you. So so with that being said, I am going to draw this webinar to a close. And thank you so much for joining us. And keep an eye out for the email tomorrow, which will have a whole bunch of stuff in it, including the link to this recording, as well as some support info that will help you, and links to our other webinars and office hour sessions. And again, any further questions, do not hesitate to reach out. We love it when you do. So, so thank you all again for joining us, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much.